Hi, my name is Seth Escalante and today we're going to learn 10 open chords on the guitar. So if you haven't seen my videos before, please do. They will help you understand the jargon and understand this lesson a lot easier. So in my previous videos, we go through the technique of the guitar, how to hold the guitar, the body of the guitar, and your finger position. So once you understand those things, including reading chord charts, reading tabs, it makes this lesson a lot easier. You can check in the description below or the caption below and you'd see the videos listed in order of how you should learn the guitar or teach the guitar. In my opinion, of course, this is how I would teach my students. These 10 open chords could play almost any pop song that your students may want to play. Also, we're going to learn the 10 open chords in an order which makes it a lot easier to memorize. Let's get into it. On the chord chart on my left, you see the E minor chord. What it says there to put your second finger on the 5th string on the 2nd fret. Then it says to put your 3rd finger on the 4th string on the 2nd fret. You don't want to have your fingers too far from the fret and you don't want to have it too close that it's on the fret. Right above is where it should be, and you may have to squish your fingers a little together to make it fit in the 2nd fret. So that's your E minor chord. Of course, you make sure that your technique is correct in terms of your thumb shouldn't show, your fingers are bent and not like this, and you always have a finger space between the neck of the guitar and your wrist, and we keep that with every chord that we play. So we're going to strum the E minor chord 4 times with our thumb. And that's the E minor chord. Now we're going to go ahead to the E major chord. And the E major chord, it's really easy and it's a very easy transition. You keep the E minor chord and all you have to do to make the E major chord is put the 1st finger on the 3rd string on the 1st fret. That's all you have to do. Now you have E major. Let's give it a strum 4 times. So we have the E major chord, and if we take off our 1st finger, we go back to the E minor chord. Put on the 1st finger on the 3rd string, 1st fret, E major. Let's go on to the next chord, minor chord. And this chord is an easy transition as well. All you have to do is let every single finger go down 1 string. So my 1st finger is on the 3rd string, so it goes down to the 2nd string. My 3rd finger is on the 4th string, so it will go down to the 3rd string. My 2nd finger is on the 5th string, it will go down to the 4th string. So all your fingers move down. And that's your A minor chord. Pretty easy, right? 3 chords, and all you have to do is add a finger, move down some fingers, and you have 3 chords so far. So the C major chord now. In the C major chord, we leave the 1st finger where it is, we leave the 2nd finger where it is, and we're lifting up the 3rd finger, and we're putting the 3rd finger on the 3rd fret on the 5th string. So it goes right there. Let's give that a strum 4 times. So that's a bit of a lengthy stretch there. So it goes from the 3rd finger here for the A minor chord, and your 3rd finger goes on the 5th string, 3rd fret, for the C major chord. So A minor to C major. Next chord, just as easy. We move down, which is the F major 7th chord. We move the 2nd finger down a string, so it was on the 4th string. It goes to the 3rd string now, same fret, 2nd fret. The 3rd finger, it's on the 5th string. It's going to go down to the 4th string. Same fret, 3rd fret. And that's your F major 7th chord. Now there's a little something different about this chord. If you watch on the chart, it has an X on the 6th string, which generally means that you shouldn't strum the 6th string. In my opinion, this chord sounds great if you strum it from the 4th string. So let's give it 4 strums from the 4th string. So this chord is called F major 7th. And you could, most of the time, you could use this chord in place of an F major chord if you're learning a song. Right? So those were the first 5 chords of the video. Right? And they had very, very easy transitions. Next 5 chords, we're going to start with G major. In the first 5 chords, we started with E minor, and everything was just to add a finger, move down a finger, and you got 5 complete chords. And to me, in my opinion, that's the 5 easiest chords that you should first teach your student, that you should first learn if you're learning by yourself. The next 5 chords, your fingers have to stretch a bit more, right? So you really want to do some finger stretching exercises. If you check out my previous videos, we talk about the first position exercise, and that just holding the position really helps your fingers move and stretch a lot. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to learn 5 chords now, and it's going to start with G major. So let's do G major. Now, a lot of students I've taught over the decade normally form their chords from the 6th string go down. But the G major chord, it's a lot easier for them to form if they go from the 1st string to come up, right? It's a lot easier for them. So we're going to go from the 1st string come up. So the 3rd finger, it's on the 1st string and it's on the 3rd fret. So you put our 3rd finger on the 3rd fret on the 1st string. Then we put our 1st finger on the 5th string on the 2nd fret. So that goes right there, make sure, right above the fret. And then our 2nd finger, our middle finger, goes on the 6th string on the 3rd fret. Okay? And that's your G major chord. Let's give it a strum for 4 times. That's your G major chord. From the G major chord, we're going to go to the B7 chord, right? So what we do here, we take off our 2nd finger, we take off our 3rd finger, but we leave our 1st finger where it is. We skip a string and we put our 2nd finger on the 3rd string, and we're on the same fret as the 1st finger. So our 2nd finger goes on the 3rd string on the 2nd fret. So it skips the D string. Likewise, our 3rd finger skips the 2nd string and goes to the 1st string and is again on the 2nd fret. So this chord, the entire chord is on the 2nd fret, and once you have your 1st finger on the 5th string, 2nd fret, you have to skip a string, skip a string. So a lot of my students, we call this the skip chord or the skip chord, and that's how they memorize it. So if I say the B7 chord, they may get a bit confused at first, but if I say the skip chord, they'll know, oh, the chord where we put our 1st finger here and we skip and we skip. So we get the B7 chord, right? And let's give this a strum 4 times. And that's the B7 chord. If your song has a B major or a B minor chord, the B7 is most of the times, or should I say some of the times, is a good enough substitute for your students to play a song that may have that chord in it, right? So let's go to the next chord. So we were on the B7 chord, this is the B7 chord. We're going to go to the A major chord, and this chord is a very easy transition as well. Your 1st finger comes down a string. So it was on the 5th string, and now it comes down to the 4th string. It doesn't change the fret, it's still on the 2nd fret. The 3rd finger comes up a string. So from the 1st string, it comes up to the 2nd string, right? So your 3rd finger is on the 1st string, it comes up to the 2nd string, and all your fingers are still in the 2nd fret. And my students call this the squish chord, because this is the chord where your fingers have to squish together to manage to play the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. So just like we have the skip chord, which is the B7 chord, the A major chord, if they forget the name A major, if I say the squish chord, they'll know, oh, the chord that we have to squish all our fingers together on the same fret, right? So this is the A major chord. Let's strum it 4 times. That's our A major chord. The next 2 chords are D major and D minor. And in my experience, students have the most trouble grasping these last 2 chords. So we're going to take it slow, and we're going to learn the D minor and the D major chord, right? So I'm currently on my A major chord here. To make D minor, we lift up the 1st finger, and we take our 3rd finger and carry it down a fret. So now we're on the 3rd fret, right? So I'll do that one more time for you. This is the A major chord or the squish chord, and we take off our 1st finger and we carry down our 3rd finger 1 fret. So the 2nd finger was on the 2nd fret on the 2nd string. We carry it down a fret, which means it's now on the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. And of course, if your students get confused, you can just look at the chord chart, and the chord chart will have everything there. So now we have 2 fingers in place. Our 1st finger that we took off, we're going to put the 1st finger on the 1st string, 1st fret. So my students get this. If I say put your 1st finger on the 1st string on the 1st fret, they tend to know it's the D minor chord, right? So that's a little trick as well. So I'll do that one more time, and I'll do it a bit faster so you can see the motions of my fingers. So this is the A major chord. I'm going to go to D minor now. I take off my first finger. I slide down my third finger 1 fret. It's now on the 3rd fret, same string. And I put my first finger on the 1st string on the 1st fret. And this is your D minor chord. And just like F major 7, I prefer to strum the D minor chord from the 4th string. So let's give it a strum 4 times. And that's your D minor chord. We've reached our last chord, which is D major, right? So for our D major chord, we take off our second finger. Our second finger is off. We take off our first finger. So our 3rd finger remains. I'm going to do that one more time. We're on the D minor chord. We take off our first finger. We take off our second finger. Put your first finger where your second finger just was, right? So your second finger was just here. You're going to put your first finger there instead, right? I'm going to do that one more time because this is the part where a lot of my students tend to get a little confused. So I'm going to do that one more time. The D minor chord. I take off the first finger, I take off the second finger, and I put my first finger where my second finger just was, which is the 3rd string, 2nd fret. And now I put my second finger, which is my middle finger, on the 1st string on the 2nd fret. So it goes right here, right? So that's the D major chord. Now I'm going to run through the entire transition between D minor and D major so you can get a smooth transition of everything. This is your D minor chord. Take off your first finger, take off your second finger. Put your first finger where the second finger just was. Put your second finger on the 2nd fret on the 1st string. And that's your D major chord. Let's give it a strum 4 times. So just like D minor and F major 7, I strum my D major from the 4th string. In my opinion, that's where it sounds a lot better, right? So if you look at it, and a lot of students prefer this method as well, you have the D minor chord. The only thing you're really doing is carrying down your first finger to the 2nd fret, and you're switching the first and the second finger. So if that works for your students, that's good as well. So you have the D minor chord, you carry down your first finger to the 2nd fret, it puts your hand in this awkward position, and then you switch the 1st and the 2nd finger, and you have that D major chord there. Now we're going to go through the full 10 open chords. And if you give your students these chords to learn, they tend to become more motivated because, now they can play their favorite pop songs. And the main purpose of a child or a student learning an instrument is to play what they enjoy, to enjoy the instrument. So let's go through the 10 open chords. And just a reminder that if you teach them the chords in this exact order, it will be easier for them to remember the hand positions, and also easier for them to remember the names of the chord because they're doing the same order each time. And that will help them when they have to memorize their chords. Let's go. We have the E minor chord. Add your first finger to the 3rd string on the 1st fret, E major. Move all the strings down 1 fret, A minor. Move your 3rd finger alone across to the 5th string, 3rd fret. Carry your 2nd and your 3rd finger down a fret. And that's your first 5 chords. Make G major. Right? We take off our 2nd, we take off our 3rd, and this is the skip chord. We skip, and we have our B7 chord. Then we have our A major chord, which is the squish chord. We carry down our first finger, we carry up our 3rd finger, our fingers all squished together. That's your A major. Then we have our D minor chord. We take off our first finger, we carry down a fret our 3rd finger, and we put our first finger on the 1st string on the 1st fret. And then we have our last chord, which is D major. And there are 2 ways to make D major. You can either take off your first finger, take off your 2nd finger, put the first finger where the 2nd finger once was, and put your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret, 1st string. Or you go to the D minor chord, you carry down your first finger to the 2nd fret, and then you switch your first and 2nd finger, to the D major chord. And that's your 10 open chords. And just a note for your teachers or self-learning students, a couple of the chords that may give you trouble, from my experience after teaching over a decade, is the G major chord, because it's a very long stretch, right? You'll get trouble maybe with the D major and the D minor chord because your fingers are so close together, right? Some students also gave trouble initially with the C major and the F major chord, but once they get over that C major and F major, the rest used to follow really easily. So those are the chords that you want to look out for, and also remember, thumb don't show, and finger space between your hand and the guitar, fingers close to the frets, all been said in my previous videos. So I hope this video is really helpful, and I hope you enjoy. Have a great day.